Hi there, I'm Myrna Loy, Managing Director of Blackbright News. Blackbright News has been a hard copy publication, but more recently I've decided to do blogs because they're more current, they're more fluid, and I can more or less talk about a topic as and when it affects us as Black people. Now this morning I was sent a video on Tupac. And ordinarily, I wouldn't even look at anything to do with Tupac, only because I think, oh, well, he's for the young people's thing, and basically because he's a rapper, and I don't feel as though I have anything in common with him. So I've heard over the years, people bandy around Tupac, and I've never stopped to think about anything he's got to say. However, nothing happens before the time, and this morning I decided, because it was a credible person that sent me that video, to look at it and listen. And I was quite surprised. He wasn't the person who I thought he was going to be. He was compassionate, he was empathetic, he's had a little bit of naivety about him. And as he talked about, people owning 52 houses with 52 rooms when they're homeless on the street. And he said, when you have money in your pocket, you shouldn't care about what the person on the street is going to do with it. They need it because they're without and you have. So if you can give them something, don't worry if they're going to buy drugs with it, drink or whatever. You just give them something. And he said that's the way it should be. And I listened to him, and he said a lot of other stuff that kind of made sense. He even mentioned about the lottery. When how can somebody win 32 million or trillions or whatever it is, and you've got homeless on the street? Why would that be allowed? So when I was listening to that, I thought, oh, this guy talks sense. And then it went into this Illuminati thing, and how many of the artists are involved in it and how they want to get out of it, but they can't because they've signed an oath. So then I thought to myself, well, if they can't do what they want, then they're slaves. There is just as much slaves as they were over 400 years ago, being forced to do things that they don't really want to do, being put in a position where they have to do what they're told to do, and regardless of how much money they have, it's like dangling that carrot. Whatever they did to the slaves over 400 years ago, whether it was Christianity, whether it was beads, whatever it was that entrapped them, they're using a different kind of psychology on the rich young blacks today. So you have a lot of rich young blacks who, I think they're probably very ego-driven, who felt that because they were, and it's mostly Americans, but because they want the high life and they see the friends with the high life, they don't know what those people have done to get rich. So they decide to jump on the bandwagon. Oh yeah, I'm going to sign you up with a contract, $2 million contract. They don't stop to think about, oh, why would somebody sign me up for a $2 million contract? Their ego's too big. They just think they're great. So somebody signs up for a $2 million contract when they don't really know them very well, and they get the 2 million and they live the life of Riley. Of course, they've got used to living the life of Riley. They don't want to go back to being on the street like how they used to be. So a couple of years down the line, when everything's going good, they have to pay back the debt that they never bargained on. So that is slavery. You hear a lot of stories about what is going on with rich recording artists, they're not even young, half of them, but you hear what's going on. Then you have somebody like Bill Cosby who got rich, and then this woman brought up this sex charge against him. Actually absolutely destroyed his career. took all his money trying to defend himself, and then a few years later when he's washed out and old, oh, I made it up for my memoirs. So if you're rich, you're a target for attack because they don't want you to be black and rich. There's nothing worse than a rich nigger and an educated nigger. Nothing worse. So they've got to take you out. So that means you are a slave. You've got to do as you're told. Then you have the middle class. What are the middle class doing? They're going into their white neighbourhoods. They're thinking, oh yes, I'm not mixing with the riffraffs. I'm going to prove my point that I'm better than everyone else. And, you know, I've got this job. I'm a doctor. I'm a lawyer, whatever you are. But you have a beautiful house and you have a beautiful car. You have your wife. You have your 2 point whatever kids, and everything is hunky-dory. But you have a mortgage, you have credit, and as long as you have mortgage and as long as you're in debt, you are a slave. So don't get it twisted. Don't think that just because you are hanging around with a lot of white people and you have a decent home that you are what's the word? Well, I'm looking for the word that says you are exempt from slavery. You're not exempt from slavery. In fact, you are even more enslaved than the poor person who doesn't have anything. The poor person who doesn't have anything, he's just like a little puppet. He's restricted in the sense that because he can't buy what he wants and he wants what he wants because he sees what other people have, more inclined to turn to crime. When they turn to crime, more likely they end up in prison, and in that sense, another slave again. All slaves. So, I'm just thinking, yeah, I think that's really what I want to say, that regardless of where you are on the ladder, what rung you're standing on, you are a slave. And I want to say as long as you're black, but we have white people on the, you know, in the same boat, having mortgages, you know, being tied into debt and can't getting out. So it's just not confined to blacks. But all I'm saying, as far as blacks are concerned, and you compare it to our history, not much has changed. We still can't speak how we want to speak. We still need to conform if we want to get along. You need to behave. You need to not speak out. If you speak out, it's detrimental. To be honest, I'm surprised that Louis Farrakhan has got away so long. I guess I don't know why he's considered quite harmless, but I would have thought that he would have been one of those that they would have targeted, but obviously not. So there are a few people who can speak out, say what they want, and they're strong enough to get by. But yeah, I was just thinking, you know, most of the people who have spoken out, like Tupac, like Bob Marley, they spoke out through the music. How influential Michael Jackson was, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, people who get a large following. When I'm saying a large following, millions and millions of people follow them, idolize them. Those are the people who are a threat to power, and why those people are a form. They have to, if they can't control them like slaves, they have to get rid of them, whoever they are. So don't get it twisted. Don't think you're walking around here a free man or a free woman. You're not. As long as you have a mortgage, as long as you owe somebody something, as long as you have a credit card, and you know you're using these cards. You know, today I decided to go and see someone in hospital. And I took my Oyster card, but my companion didn't have an Oyster card. And so she was saying to me, oh, you can put it through twice and pay for me. And I'm like, I don't think you can. And she was quite convincing. She goes, yes, you can, try it. Anyway, I scanned it through and she went through. But of course, you can't pay for two people. You can't pay for someone else. Although I don't know why not. I don't know why not, but there's obviously a reason. So then I decided, oh, I'm going to have to do it through the machine. Now, it costs £1.70 to use your Oyster card to go, I think we were going 9 stops, right? But when I went to the cash machine, because I thought, well, we're coming back to the station, I put in, our destination. It was £9.80. Now, going there with the Oyster card, £1.70 there, £1.70 back, that's £3.40. You pay cash, it's £9.80. Now, what does that tell you? It tells you that they're trying to avoid people paying cash. Now, why would somebody pay £9.80 when they can pay £3.40? So it's not even a marginal difference. It's a massive difference. And that is because once you are electronified, I'm going to call it, and you are electronically fied, and you are technology-fied with your little Oyster card or your contactless card, which only charges £1.50 plus a 10p fee. So it does kind of work out near the Oyster. That means they can track you down. They can track you where you're going. And so you're being penalised for using cash. And it's all a part of the control. So yeah, we're all slaves, love. We think we're getting up and doing what we want. We are not. We are not doing what we want at all. So this doesn't just apply to black. So it's just only because I'm black, I'm talking for black people, but it does apply to a hell of a lot of us who are alive in 2020. Yeah, 2020, the era of slavery. Ciao for now.